hotels and hotels around, in case. But thank you, Cheryl, and thank you, Eileen, for having me here. As you stated, it is an important topic, it is an important issue, and it is an important event that will be occurring this year. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain basically how it is that we get to April 1st, so that way you have an idea of how big an undertaking this is and why we do things the way we do it and how important and why it matters, okay? And if you have questions, if you want, I'm not going to say hold it off till the end. Right there at the topic, please feel free to shout out your question. But what I want to do is start with basically letting you know that the Census Bureau's mission is to serve as the nation's leading provider of quality data about its people and through the nation. We do have a mandate in the Constitution that says we need to count everybody who resides in the United States and its territories every 10 years. And it is because there are 3-4 points that are important to this mandate, and it is in the Constitution, since it was mandated, that we count the population for congressional apportionment. Very, very important. But also with regards to what our founding fathers had in mind, we use the data, and I don't say just we, as the federal government talking about everybody in the nation, we use the data to draw congressional districts every 10 years because they do change. Populations tend to have it dips and valleys, so we do have to look at that every 10 years. It is also used based on population and housing to help distribute $675 million in federal funding to local communities. And also everyday people use the information to make informed decisions, governmental units, nonprofits, libraries, hospitals, you name it. And also it provides businesses and nonprofits with information that helps them make informed and well-positioned decisions about their endeavor. Okay. This slide will give you an overview of basically the operation from where we decide to, how we count and to when we deliver the numbers to the president. In order to start the census, we need to have an accurate address base. We need a good address list. And this is something that we maintain and update not just before the decennial, but on an annual basis. There's a program called Boundary and Annexation, BAS. And this is where the local communities, the local jurisdictions, when they have an annexation or they de-annex a property or there's some boundary changes to their local jurisdiction, they submit to us in Jeffersonville, the BAS unit, their documentation, and then we update their boundaries to make sure that when we count, their area is accurately represented. Also, we have building permits. Okay, there's a survey that goes on year in, year out that will make note of the building permits that are out there, and then occupancy permits as well. But just before the decennial, I think 2 years before the decennial census, we have a program, big undertaking. It's called LUCA, and that is the Local Update of Census Addresses. And this is basically where the local jurisdictions enter into a partnership with the Census Bureau, appointing one individual who is going to take the oath the way we do to keep that information confidential. And then what we do is share with them what we have on our master address file, just addresses. So that way they have the opportunity of looking to see what we have, and then they make corrections, additions, or deletions. Because it's important that we have an accurate mailing list to get those questionnaires out, to make sure that our enumerators are going to go to the right place. Okay? And so once that's going, one of the phases that we were in last year was the second bullet, which is motivating people to respond. And we're kind of in that same phase now. And that is when our partnership staff are hired. They're local individuals that are hired to go out into the community and work with the trusted voices, the local faith-based organizations, the education, media, local jurisdictions, you name it, to work with them to train them. Okay, we have complete count committees, and then they train the organization members on census information, why the census is important, how it's done, the operations, and how to get people educated and then motivated to respond to the census. And then we get to the self-response, which is basically, you responding to the census. Not us going out and knocking on your door, but you actually answering the census. And this comes about right before April 1st, where there's all this big hoopla. You'll be hearing about us through our media campaign and local organizations. They will be putting on local events in their communities to get the word out that you need to answer the census, okay? And once all of that is out, people ask us a lot, well, what about group quarters? How are you going to count them? People who live in assisted living environments or dormitories or prisons and jails. Don't they get counted? Of course they do. We have an operation called group quarters where with dormitories and universities, a lot of times mom and dad at home keep a room for Chris who's at U of I. And so I come, you get the census and you put it on there, yeah, Chris lives with us, so on and so forth. But in reality, Chris is 9 months out of the year at U of I in the dorm. That is where they should be counted. Because when they come home, they're only there for 2 months or so before they have to go back to school. So the majority of the time is spent at the dormitory or at off-campus housing. That is where they should be counted. You keep a room at home and that's good, but majority of the time, this is where they should be counted. So that information.
Should they really be counted where they vote?
Pardon me?
Should they really be counted where they vote?
It's the residency rule, the criteria that is applied in this instance, okay, for where you spend the majority of your time in
I
residence.
never changed my daughter's residency when she went to college. She may have lived at college, but her residency was in my home.
Okay,
Just, she's been gone out of college for a while.
yeah. Yeah, no, you don't need to change their residency, okay, for purposes of voting. That's something totally different. But for the decennial that happens every 10 years, it's where you are at the time. And if you're in the dorm,
That means that, she went to Nebraska, so she would get counted at Nebraska. So her funding would go to Nebraska instead of Illinois.
the dormitory, this is the education, yeah, the education, yeah, because that is where she's at, that is where she.
That's not where her money's coming from. And I know, follow the money. That's not where the money's coming from.
No, but think of it this way. Chris is at U of I. He's using the services there at U of I in the town. Okay, so that's where the funding should go by right, because he's not at my house in Lake County, using the services in Lake County. He's using the services out in Champaign.
But the redistricting part, I mean.
Yes.
So, okay, so she's at Chris, whatever, is at U of I, but, and that, she does use buses or whatever at U of I can understand that, but. Not for 10 years. Yeah.
For 4 years, 3.5, for 4 years, she uses it.
Today's kids, maybe 5 or 6.
Well, here's the thing in terms of,
She was one of them, but she kept all of
Yeah.
her, like, her driver's license, her car insurance, was done here.
a
so-
lot of students do that. They do that.
But it impacts us because
Yeah.
that makes us look like we have fewer voters in our precincts, so,
Mhm.
to me, that would be.
And that's something that, no, that's something that I cannot address because I don't know myself Illinois voting, guidelines and rules and regulations, so I can't say, no, it goes here. I can't say that. I could just,
Losing so many people already.
oh, yeah.
But kind of just as an aside, we have a small college here.
Mhm.
They had a special census so they could count those students, so they could get more funding there in the sites. So it works both ways.
Well, but you got a small college at 20,000, and then you got a big college, U of I, it's got 60,000.
Right,
So
I'm just
it will change the whole boundaries of I know you can't answer.
Yeah,
this.
it's,
just something that-
the way the voting thing, and this is the thing,
They're showing that they're probably doing the same thing. Little Palos Heights is doing that to get more funding. They're doing.
Well, true. It changes our demographics when it changes your congressional districts and stuff like that, because now it's showing that, okay, we have 20,000, but we have 20,000 plus 30,000 who went away to other schools across the country. So we've lost 30,000. And
Yes.
I'm not talking about votes, I'm just talking about congressional.
Does the what I could see happening, like, all the kids at U of I not filling out the forms. And so then, they, are not represented anyway. Does U of I, do they help at all in trying to get those kids to register or to be on the census?
absolutely, absolutely. We have, with the group quarters operation, we have, if you will, a tenant that is specifically to work with universities and get the college students involved, and also help perpetuate the information and the activity of participating in the census. And then also, we're working with administration to get administrative records, so that from the administrative records, we get all the data, and then, as opposed to having someone go to that dorm and knock on every door, when the students are not there, and they're out in class.
Well, they're not interested.
Yeah, so it's a combination of things. We're looking to involve the students to make them responsible for participating. It kind of, civic responsibility, so they can take an active part in the whole process and learn. It's not, you're not interested now, later on, you're gonna regret it, so on and so forth, so, yes.
Would the foreign students, be counted into, because they have a lot of students?
We do have, forms that if they want to fill out a form, they can. Yeah,
And they'd be part of the census because at that moment in time.
they're there at the school, okay? Same thing, by the same token, that's the same argument that, we count prisons, federal prisons and jails and so on and so forth. And the whole debate is, they live here, but they're in prison over there. They should really be counted here. Well, again, where are they using the services? So this time around, we are counting it the way we do it, where you reside, because that's our residency rules, where you reside, but we're going to make the files available to local jurisdictions that if they want to amend their population to include that prison population, they can do that. But the Census Bureau will take no part of that. We'll just give you, the data, and then it'll be, I think, state directed in terms of the rules that to follow.
Did you just say this is the way they're doing it now? They didn't have to do it this way 10 years ago?
In terms of,
residency, a student or.
oh no, that's been our criteria for as long as I've been working with the Census Bureau. It's where you, also with temporary places, people who live in two homes. I live up here, but then I go down south for the winter. Those are both my homes. Well, where do you spend your most time? Well, I live in between, 6 months each. Well, 6 months and a day. We have that criteria. You have steps in terms of what it is that, and what happens to my home if I'm not there and you count me over here. Well, then that's vacant, intended for use, but it's a seasonal home, so on and so forth. So there's a whole bunch of rules, guidelines that our enumerators follow when they go out into the field and they're encountering these situations, okay? So, then we get to the non-response follow-up, which is when you do not self-respond, then we have to train someone in all these facets to go knock on doors and get the interview. And that's where the cost basically goes. It is more expensive to hire, train, and maintain someone to go knock on your door as opposed to you taking the initiative and filling out the form. And this time around, it's going to be really, really easy because we're giving you the option of filling the form online, mobile ready. You can do it on your iPhone, on your iPad, wherever. If you're uncomfortable with that, there's a phone number that you can call and give that interview, okay? And so you can do it online by phone, or if you prefer a questionnaire, wait until that questionnaire is mailed to you. And then if you bypass all those options, the last is the enumerator. Okay, and that's,
So they are still gonna mail out those applications?
I'll have a slide that will explain the process, okay? So, once we have enumeration of the field, April 1st is Census Day. We have to get as much responded by the end of May, because then, that's when the workload goes out for the enumerators. That's when they start knocking on doors, and we have to get all of that data collected by July 31st. We have to be out of the field, because then we have July 31st, we have August, September, October, November to tabulate, verify and tabulate this data to get out the files to the president, to the states. Okay, so it is a quite an involved operation, massive if you will, and we are doing it in an ever-changing environment because our technology is changing. Okay, before we used to go out and do things, you know, with our registers, and we used to, one thing I didn't, now that I think about it, whoops, no. Right here, no, come on. Let me start. This one, in the enumeration, the, where to count. One thing I forgot to tell you is that before, we used to hire a lot of people to walk every block of the nation and list every address that they found. This time around, we leverage technology. There are a lot of aerial files, a lot of listings online, so what we did is, we had our staff in Jeffersonville, they had the 2 monitors, and they were looking at files and comparing them. So in areas where they were stable, we didn't go out to the field. In areas that were questionable, there were houses here, now there are no houses here, those areas went out and had enumerators canvass. And then those areas like California, the wildfires that demolished that whole town, or people that live remotely throughout the nation, like in Maine, just, you know, a camp or a little house, tiny house or whatever, we have people go out and enumerate that area to get their location. So basically, whereas before we used to hire a lot of people, this time it was a certain percentage that went out, and this canvassing was done in the summer. Okay, so all of that is kind of already verified, if you will. So now we're getting into the other phase. So in an ever-changing technology and rapidly, you know, changing social criteria, if you will, we're encountering, you know, multi-generational households. We're encountering people who are very, very mobile, people who want to just disconnect and go, people who are very tech savvy, and with the introduction of the issue of the question, their mindsets have been changed. So we have a lot of challenges, okay, that we have to overcome, and this is where you guys come in, you know, to help out, because we know that we can't do it alone. And so with regards to our research in terms of where the questionnaires are going, because this time around, we're going to be doing internet first. What's going to happen is 95% of the households are going to get an invitation to participate online or use that number to call and conduct the interview. About 5% of the population is going to have an invitation dropped off, okay? And these are in areas that are, that don't have traditional addresses. They receive their mail at a post office box. So we have an enumerator that will go out. It's called Update Leave, and they will go out, update the address, and leave an invitation for you. And then about 1%, less than 1% is going to be Update Enumerate, which again, untraditional housing, marinas, you know, real transient locations, so on and so forth. Because nowadays we have people who are living on boats, who are living in campers, in trucks, in cars, you name it. So they will go out and find these individuals and update their location, and also attempt to conduct the interview at that time. So it's Update Enumerate, okay? And so this is a timeline, a general timeline of the important activities that are coming up. March 12th to the 20th, mid-March, that's when the invitations to participate in the census are going to start rolling out. I got asked the question, well, what happened if, why aren't you sending it all out at once? And our fear is that we might crash the server. So it's like better to roll it out incrementally, so on and so forth. We don't know who's going to get what, where, when, but it's gonna be rolled out, slowly. But basically, everybody will get a letter with an which is basically the invitation, and it will give you that, overview. Here's where you go for your URL, to sign in. If you're uncomfortable, here's a phone number, so on and so forth. March 16th to the 24th, oh, yeah.
Yes, I understand that if you, on the census, if you don't, respond and fill out the census, that you can get, a $5,000 fine for not doing, you as a citizen or being in this country that you have not done your part.
Well, yes, that is true. We have a non-response, failure to comply, penalty, if you will. And because the response to the census is mandatory, okay? And we don't do just the census. We have other censuses and surveys that we do. You mentioned special censuses. We do a lot of those here in the region. We have the American Community Survey, which, if some of you remember back in 2000, it's the last time that we used it, we had 2 forms go out. One was a short form, 6 basic demographic question. The other one was a long form. And the long form went out to a sample portion, a portion of the nation. And that had a lot of questions on what kind of fuel do you use to heat your home? Is it handicap compliant, blah, blah, blah. Your commute time, higher education. So it had a lot of, deep questions. And that kind of went off on the side and became its own survey. It called the American Community Survey. So when you hear on the news, certain information about, a demographic population, most probably is coming from the ACS, the American Community Survey, because it used to be part of the census, now it's its own survey. So the census, being that it's mandatory, ACS is also mandatory. Now, with regards to the fines and will we prosecute, I've been with the census since 1990, and I haven't heard of a case brought up against an individual for not being prosecuted. That's another arm of the enforcement part of it is another arm of the government, but it is there. And what we would prefer to do is gain your cooperation by giving you the facts, showing you how important it is, how vitally important it is for local communities, okay? As opposed to, I'm gonna slap you with a fine because you're not answering the census, so on and so.
What about the street people?
The homeless? I'm gonna address it in another slide, okay? So, March 16th to the 24th, you're going to get a reminder letter, and if you still haven't responded, you're going to get another reminder postcard. April 8th through the 16th, you're going to get a letter and a questionnaire if you have not responded online or by phone. That's when you get the paper questionnaire. So depending on your comfort level, if you're okay with the internet, get it out of the way. Not sure of the internet, it's the first time that we're allowing telephone interviews, but you can do it over the phone. Nice and easy, especially if you have some kind of disability or handicap or some kind of issue that prevents you from going online and doing it, you can do it over the phone. And still, if you don't like those 2 options, you can wait for the
There's still
questionnaire.
a quarter of the nation that doesn't have access to the internet, so.
And that's why we partnered with the libraries, because we know the American Library Association, we partner with them because we know that we have people who don't have technology, who don't have service, okay? So where do they go? Libraries. Okay, yes?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, the security number on this form?
Census does not ask that. Okay, we do not even on our surveys. We have a survey that's called Survey of Income and Program Participation, which asks you about program participation. Do you participate in Social Security, in Medicaid, Medicare? Do you have a 401k? Do you have a retirement account? Do you have a Roth? We ask you about program participation, we don't ask you about account numbers, social security numbers, okay? So, April 1st is the target date, that's when on the questionnaire, it will ask you, where were you at this, you know, living at, as of April 1st, 2020? That is our point in time, as a point to a period of time, which is what our surveys do. A point in time will give you that information, it's kind of like a snapshot of the nation as of April 1st, 2020. And then April 27th, 20th to the 27th, that's basically the final reminder, but you still have time. If, you know, you don't do it in this initial push, you still have time to respond. Yes?
Percentage of people don't respond, even if you send them out.
It's been going down, it's been going down. Last, decade, it was in the 80s, and now we're expecting in the 60s. No, I'm sorry, 20% didn't, this time we're anticipating about 40, non-response. So 60% participation or so, 60, 68, I think it was, yeah.
You think it's gonna go down this year?
That's what our prediction is, the Census Bureau's,
Way up.
let's keep our
I
fingers
don't know,
crossed.
You know, there's people that just don't wanna do that. Not that you can stop them, I can't either.
The only way that we can, even attempt to change their mind is by educating them. It's not just answering these questions, and sometimes it's fear because they don't know. What are the questions? They're online. Go online on census.gov and then go to Census 2020 and you can find the questionnaire. It's there. Basic questions that I'll ask you. Your name, your relationship, your age, birth year, okay, Hispanic origin, race, and then a couple of housing questions. Your home, single attached, home free and clear, rent with mortgage. That's it. Those are the questions. Okay? There's no citizenship question, there's no income question, there's no education question, there's no commute question. Demographic questions are the only thing in housing. Yes.
I just wanna make sure I understand. The last point in this is someone in person goes out to someone who hasn't responded. And so I asked, when that happened, how many people still did not respond in person? And you said,
You know, the number that I quoted you was our overall response participation. That 68% is what the Census Bureau is anticipating will respond. That other portion, the balance,
so does this mean that you will in person send somebody out to 40% or 30% of the population?
that's why that little bullet in terms of non-response operation, that's the most expensive. Because that's where you have to hire the individual.
That's like 100 million people. So you're going to, in person, talk to 100 million people after April 1st and before the end of April,
Before July 31st.
or before July
Yeah.
31st. Wow.
It's massive, yeah. People don't understand. They think, oh, you know. No, when you
Well, we go back
collectively.
50 years, and it never was online, it was, everybody went to door to door.
Mm-hmm, yep.
I know, when we talked about this, when I did my genealogy, you go, you can see the 1940 census, and it's all handwritten by somebody like you or me, you go to a door, write down everybody's name in the household.
Yeah.
But I think when that happened, people answered.
Right. Well, we
Now
didn't
we're
have
sending
fear of the
people
government
to-
back then either, did we?
Well,
Well, we're sending people to 100 million people, and most of those people won't answer.
Some will, some still will refuse to answer, but, this is what we have to do to make sure that we knock on your door and give you that opportunity and tell you.
Some of those people who refuse could legally be fined, is that correct?
Yes? But like I said, we're not the enforcement arm of it. We're not the enforcement part of it. Yes?
Before you move from this screen, I'm interested to know where does Tagalog come from?
Tagalog? It's Filipino.
Oh, Philippines.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I know I'm not going to be in my primary residence on April 1st. I'll be in a camper on the road, so
They'll find you.
got GPS, we'll be following you.
So where's my residence?
Will you be home, your primary residence? You're gonna be on a camp or traveling, right?
Right,
That's not where you live most of the time,
right.
so you answer it for your home. That's your primary residence. So if you're going to be out on April 1st, keep an eye out for that invitation.
But I'm
It-
not gonna be at home when the invitation comes in March,
Okay.
online.
You can go to the 2020 census site,
And just do it.
get the phone number.
Fine.
I'm not sure if the URL is going to be like public, that anybody and everybody, I'm not sure, I haven't seen that. But I know the phone number is going to be posted on our website, so that way you can do it. Okay, so, we're a diverse nation, we have many languages, and a lot of individuals prefer to fill out the census in their language. So we've taken that into consideration with our research, and we have, other than English, we have 99% of the languages covered. So English and these 12 languages are going to have in-language questionnaires, if you will, or a phone operator that will help you fill out these questionnaires. All the other languages, we have, it's a total of, I think, 52. We will have language guides that will be posted on the partnership site on our 2020 webpage, and you can download. Those are guides that will help those other languages walk you through filling out the questionnaire. Okay? And so, because we can't do it alone, this is just basically a real quick graphic on how it is that we're attacking this monster, if you will, multi-pronged, trying to use everything and anything that's available to get the word out, to get you to hear. Census, fill out the form, it's important, it's confidential. We've got our partnership program in full swing right now. We're in the recruiting mode because we still need a lot, especially Illinois, needs a lot of people to help out with the census. We have a program called Statistics in Schools, which basically, it's online, it's evergreen now. It's a program done by teachers for teachers, and they created a civic portion of the decennial census in their lesson plans. So if teachers want to introduce statistics to their classroom, they can go to Statistics in Schools, and it's pre-K to senior year in high school. And in fact, a lot of community colleges come into our website, Stats in Schools, to pull out courses or lesson plans to incorporate in their class. But you've got it in geography, you've got it in social studies, you've got it in math, English, and now we've got the census, and I think there's one more that I'm missing. And this is a way to introduce stats into the classrooms, from kindergarten going all the way. I tried to do a 3rd grade lesson plan, and I'm sitting here going, they're learning this at 3rd grade now? I was like, dang. Anyway, but they're not just simple cutesy kind of things, they're challenging questions. And you've got, what's the point, what's the involvement, the thought process and the technique and so on. It's very, very well thought out, and it's there. The lesson plan, the teacher version, the student version, you can drop down on that. So we're using Stats at School in a way to get it to the children, to the kids, because parents are very involved in their kids' education, and they will ask, what are you learning? And if they hear it from the kids, then, or when they see that information, go, hey, Mom, did you fill out? Hey, Dad, did you? They'll get them involved. So.
Where's that located?
If you go to census.gov on the search engine, just type in Statistics in Schools, and it'll take you to the page. Okay? And then, so as you can see, we've got a variety by using local voices, community activity. We've got a media campaign that is going to be rolling out, so we can use social media as well as the news, radio, print, magazine, you name it, get that information out. So we need people to share the information in terms of, oh, I don't trust that, and this, this is, that it's confidential, the value of the data, you can allay their fears, or just engage them in a conversation in terms of how important it is. Because you guys have all seen the reports in the news in terms of funding, wars constantly, population loss, losing congressional seat, possibly 2. and some states are gonna gain it, so that's where the money is going, that's where the political vote is going. So it's important, it's not just about a number. So, across the nation, aside from the language program, that we also looked at how we can make it easier for these, because we know that we have a very large Hispanic population. So in our research, we're going to have, we looked at tracks that were 20% or more of the tracks are going to be getting a questionnaire in Spanish based on what was in there. And a lot of this information came from the American Community Survey. And then we also have tracks, identified tracks with the 20% or more that will also get a guide to help them fill it out, because at least one person speaks English. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for everybody to have the opportunity to participate. And this, it gets us to the non-response follow-up. Our enumerators are gonna start receiving the workload as of the end of May, so more or less in June, but they're gonna be receiving real-time data, meaning that, okay, I was lazy, I didn't fill out my form until, June 1st. Well, that information is gonna be transmitted, it's gonna be taken out of that enumerator's workload in real time. And also to make it easier for them as well, their training is gonna be automated. They go in for 1 day for processing or onboarding, but then they're gonna be trained online. And they're going to be using devices. And with these devices, they're going to download their workload. Their workload is going to be mapped out for them. So it saves on going back and forth, because you don't know the area. And also their payroll is going to be done on their iPhone. So it makes it more efficient, less error, and less cost.
They're gonna provide the device for the enumerator?
Not sure yet of how, so far for the canvassing part, were provided a little laptop. You know, so I have not heard in terms of specifically, is it gonna be on your iPhone, or are you gonna get a laptop? Okay, and that'd probably be a laptop. That's my guess, but,
Yeah, 'cause not everybody has an iPhone.
well, it's, the participation is Android but like you said, not everybody has those. They have their little track phones as well, so, okay. So, with regards to your question on the individuals who are experiencing homelessness, we have an operation aside from the group quarters that's called service-based, okay? And these operations are meant to involve and get those individuals to participate in the census because they need to be counted as well. So we have basically service-based enumeration will happen for people who are experiencing homelessness. We will enumerate them at the place that they receive service. What does that mean? Their soup kitchen, where they go to get their clothing, where they go to get their, their housing for the night, so on and so forth. Wherever they get those services, that's where we will enumerate them. And then we also have the transitory locations, and that is for people who don't go, because we know that the homeless population sometimes does not want to even go there because they know they're gonna try and get me to do this, and they're gonna try and get me to do that. But they just kind of pull away. They're tent cities, or living under viaducts, under bridges. We have one night that is going to be set aside from like 10 to 6 a.m., where we will work with local organizations who know of these enclaves, and we're gonna go out and offer them enumerate them at that time. And it's called, Tinsel, but it's at nighttime. It's escaping my mind right now, the operation. They used to be, but it's one night out of the place. And then, like I mentioned before, we do have, the operation where we count individuals who are in correctional institutions or in facilities, so on and so forth. Okay? So, why is it that we do this? And again, because, as a reminder, it's in the Constitution, and we need it for congressional apportionment, aside from the other points. And so we're under a very, very tight deadline from the moment that we send out those invitations to collecting the last piece of information. All of that data has to be verified and tabulated and taken out to the president. Over the fall, we had a lot of groups, focus groups, I guess, if you will, and conversations with our data users in terms of what data is important to you from the decennial, okay? What products do you need? And this is what we are looking at now in terms of how is it that we're going to deliver the count, okay? Because we used to have a lot of information pulled out in different, but now there's this thing called differential privacy, which is a new way of introducing, protecting the data, I should say, more than before. Previously, what we were doing was enough to get us through, but with today's computing power and third-party data collectors, we can't do that anymore. Okay, so we have to look at ways that we can protect your confidentiality and give you high-quality data. Because the way we're looking at it now, if we give you high-quality data, we might risk exposing the participant. And if we protect you too much, then the quality of data, goes down. So we have to find that. And we're looking at and partnering with like Google and Microsoft to see how it is that we can do it and provide you the confidence that your data is not going to be exposed, but also we're giving you good quality data.
Does your product include uncertainties?
Yes. For the decennial, since it's 100% participation, there is no margin of error, but our censuses and surveys, I should say our surveys, they do have that margin of error because it is a sample survey. So,
So as the response rate goes down, does the uncertainty go up?
I can't answer that because I'm not a statistician.
That's a hard question.
It is, and I don't work with the data in that respect to give you,
What is the uncertainty in the last one?
what was the uncertainty?
Yeah, if you say that such and such a district has X number of people in it, and you assign an uncertainty to that, do you have an idea of how uncertain that number was?
That I don't, afraid I don't.
Did I understand you to say that the estimate for this census is 68%, but?
Response.
In the past census, it was like 80%?
Yeah. 79, I think for this, it was 79 something or other,
If I'd have gone back to the 1990s, would it have been close to 90%?
80. It was in the 80s. That's why
I think the
our
uncertainty is so low.
response has, let's just say not our response rate, the nation's response rate has been going down. That's what we've been
Is
seeing.
the uncertainty more in urban areas than rural areas?
It's throughout, from what I've seen, the non-response, and we have a tool that you guys can look at. It's called the, Regional, Outreach Response Area Map, and it's an interactive, tool that you can put in your place or even down to the track level and get the low response score. That's a propensity for people not to respond
Yes,
in
so I
that
would
area.
normally imagine that that would not be uniform across the country.
No,
And so that means that various districts that are based on a certain amount of population would have larger errors in that estimate than other districts.
probably. And you have areas also that, by the nature of where they're at, high poverty, extremely rural, that also lend itself to that low response rate.
Well, does the Census Bureau regard this decreasing response rate as an existential threat?
I don't know if they would call it a threat, but I know that we look at it as a very, very serious challenge.
Do you have ideas, or have you been trying various methods out that you can estimate how successful they were? I mean, now, I would say that to go from 80% to 68% in 10 years in your estimate, that's not good news.
No, it's a reflection of societal issues also, but we often ask, and I'll get to you in a moment, but we have an advisory committee that meets on a regular basis at headquarters that discusses all of these. It discusses racial issues, it discusses, political issues, it discusses, privacy, statistics, accuracy, imputation, you name it, all of this, and we seek out constantly. Actually, it was gonna be in one of my other, slides, for you guys to make us work and use us in that by you coming in and using our data and our tools, you can provide feedback. By using that data, you can see, you know what, this does not work for the general population. And I'll tell you why, and you can provide that feedback. And then we have our academics who are constantly challenging us. You need to make ACS, because we publish ACS data at the 90th percent confidence interval. And they're always coming, you need to get it higher. I'm like, yeah, well, we can get it higher, but it'll mean increasing the sample, which means increasing the budget. Congress, you know, I mean, they're the ones who appropriate our budget. So that's where these debates, and these things come up all the time, and you guys can watch these meetings live because we do put it on the YouTube channel, the Census YouTube channel, and you can even ask questions and voice an opinion. So there's a way for you guys to, if you know of something, get it to the Census Bureau.
Part of the issue here is that since the House of Representatives is based on the census information, we, as citizens, should certainly write our congressman and ask for greater support for the Census Bureau. If the Census Bureau has a strategy, a plan, an idea about what to do about the declining response rate, and if they publicize the fact that the response rate is declining, so the electorate realizes there's a problem. Otherwise, you can imagine a situation 20 years from now.
And
where
this
less
is,
than
yeah,
two-thirds-
no.
Only 2/3 of people respond.
And this is something that does get published or reported in the media, but when you come down to it, census isn't a sexy topic. You know, data isn't a very sexy topic either, unless you use it, you know, and you need it. So you're only going to react to it when it's at the 11th hour, absolutely necessary, then you're like, oh my God, I didn't know this. But if you're in the throes of it day in, day out, you know the challenges, you know that. So,
So there is a place right now on your website where I could find a non-response rate for the past census.
yes. As soon as you go into census.gov, the search engine, just type in non-response rate for, or go into the Roam tool, and it will take you.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah, my question is this a secure website if you're going to do this voting online?
absolutely.
You know, I'm the person that's going to go online. I want to know if it's going to be a secure
Mhm.
website. And then the other part of the question is, what percent are they expecting fraud from voting online?
You mean responding online?
Yeah, I mean, you know that somebody isn't committing fraud, they're voting, more than once, or they're voting in like I have a house next door that's vacant,
Mm-hmm.
and they're gonna use that address.
Well, all of our data is attached to a geography. So when you are answering online, you're going to be giving your address. And we're going to take that in, it's kind of like, check, she answered, but your house next door hasn't answered. So we need to know what's going on there, so that's when someone is going to go there and, hey, that house is vacant, okay, check.
I think she's asking the question that she lives in one house, but the house that next to her is vacant.
Mm-hmm.
But I go on and use that address as where I live.
Well, we're
How
also
do you prevent
working.
that fraud?
We're also working with the post office and using administrative records to cross-reference. So when the post office gives us their delivery sequence file and says X house is no mail delivery, it's been vacant and whatever, and now all of a sudden, bling, something happens, okay, we need to check, something's not matching. So that's when we send someone out
Is that what you were
to
asking?
check.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Can I go back to the other one where we talked about the homeless? According to the McKinney-Vento Act, you can be homeless and living in somebody else's home. How are you, that's not even addressed in this at all. This is addressed for people who are living in missions, hotels, motels, shelters and stuff like that. But
The questionnaire, yeah.
I'm living in her house.
The questionnaire has a statement on there, and you can go online and look at it, to include anybody who doesn't have a place elsewhere, a home elsewhere, that is living with you. Okay?
That wasn't included in that.
Yeah, because it's in the questionnaire. So it's like you're living there, it's like, did you, and it asks you those check questions in the back, it asks you, did you forget or did you include, you know, because oftentimes, one of the most undercounted populations are children. Okay, and that is because, the foster care situation, the temporary custody situation, babies in the hospital, when were they born, so on and so forth. There's a big, undercount, or students away, or people away at the hospital, you know, so on and so forth. So the questionnaire asks you, has these checks and balances, just to make sure if you listed Johnny in, but he's at dorm, it's gonna tell you, okay, now we'll cross him out, so on and so forth, so.
Supposedly, Illinois has lost a lot of residents,
Mm-hmm,
and it really bothers me because, as I've been sitting here, I've learned a lot that I didn't know about the census and how important it is. And I think some, especially little children, start educating them how important the census really is.
absolutely.
Don't wait until every 10 years, but make it like a course of, their curriculum.
We've tried, and we continue to try, but each state has their own curriculum that they enforce. And, that's why we made the program, you know, the way we did it, so if teachers, okay, I'm a social studies teacher, census is not on my curriculum, but I know I can pull that panel out and include it in the, you know, that civics day, or whatever, that civics course.
They should
So it's
bring
there.
civics back.
Yeah, there's a lot that should be, that
Yeah,
isn't,
don't-
because of whatever, yeah.
They don't realize how important it is.
Okay, so, we need to collect everything by July 31st so we can get it processed and then get the numbers to the president by, December 31st, and the apportionment files will be released at that time. And then the redistricting file, which is when you guys are really gonna have fun, is going to be March 31st. That's when it goes to the states. And then a lot of the products will be, you know, rolled out little by little through 2021. Okay? And so, why does it matter? Okay? Number one, it's mandated by the Constitution that everybody participate, get counted. It's our official population and housing count that's gonna take us through the next 10 years and are going to give us those numbers which decisions will be based on. So, the better we have a number, the better we're off. Okay, knowing where people live makes it very easy for recovery. Okay, think of, you know, Katrina. Big issue with Katrina was all these people that were left behind. Okay, what happened there? They were using our numbers to send supplies and rescue things, but those numbers weren't accurate. Why? Because in New Orleans, there are certain parishes that were notorious non-participants in the censuses. So they did not make their voices heard. We didn't know they were there. So when the supplies were sent, they were missed. That's just one example. Puerto Rico is another one. Okay? The disasters in California, the floodings, you know, that we've been having. If you know who's there at the area, you know the impact. We have a tool which I'll kind of show you that a lot of emergency planning use, that when an event is coming in, they can see the impact of that event if it hits landfall, or even if the fires are, because they can pull up our data and say, okay, there's about 500 people in this area. What's the terrain look like? They can pull it up and see the roads that they need to get their emergency personnel to and out of that location. They know the businesses, they know how many seniors, they know if they're incapacitated or not. So that helps them prepare for these responses a lot better than before.
You keep referring to they, who is the they?
Emergency response units, your local
For all
jurisdictions.
of this, it's more government people and not
Not necessarily, because you're talking transportation, you're talking local villages, you've got a product that can help out. At the time, as I was reading an article that when hurricanes or tornadoes are going to be hitting a certain area, Walmart immediately picks up on that and diverts a lot of shipments in terms of diapers and milk and whatever to those local stores. So if they're going to be impacted, they're going to have supplies there.
But the general census information is not available to the general public.
Oh, it's available, our data is up there on our website, it's available to you 24/7. As transparent as we are, it's there. We give you the methodology, we give you the technical documentation, and then we give you the pre-tab data, and then from there, you go to town. We have tools that help you access this data.
So that would be like all the general information. So when we get this discussion about genealogy,
Mhm.
there's the 72-year law.
Yeah.
So I cannot go on and look at last 10 years, the 1990 census, I won't be able to see that for 72 years. So that's what I meant by general public having information.
Well, that's a Privacy Act, okay? When you do a census, we have to have those records for 72 years. After 72 years, they're released and the National Archives takes them. Okay. It's data that is available all the time. Records are a different thing. Records are a different thing. Yeah. Okay, so every 10 years, the results of the census are used to reapportion the House of Representatives, and the distribution of $675 billion in community funds are also important. This is where your participation, because we can't do it alone, we need your voices. And again, make the Census Bureau work for you. Cheryl picked up on that right away. Me, coming to do presentations or speaking, or teaching you, you call me and I wanna see what this is. You can call me and I can do a webinar with you, or if you have a large group, I can do a training. And this is it's built in, it's at no cost to you guys. We do this all the time. And then you using our data and our tools, if you see something that doesn't work, we always have a feedback button that you guys can come back and say, you know what, I don't understand the purpose of this, blah, blah, blah. We'll tell you, look at the Federal Register, this is when we are thinking of changing something, it'll be on there, this is your time to voice your opinion, or, so on and so forth, because we don't do these questions, they don't come just from census. Okay, an official has to come to us and say, you need to do this. We have to do the research, we have to do the testing, and once we get it, to where it's supposed to be, we submit it, okay, to Congress. Congress has to approve it, and the Office of Management and Budget provides the guidance for us to administer this. Yes?
So what will you be doing, let's say, in 3 or 4 years, in between the?
What we do, oh my God, we do over 130 censuses and surveys annually. One of which is a big one, is the economic census. Okay, many people know us because we do the decennial, but they don't know that we also do the economic census. This is how we know the nation's economy, okay? We also have the American Community Survey, okay? This is stuff that collects data on an annual basis, monthly basis, even during the decennial. That right now, if you wanted to look at what does Palos Heights looks like, you can go on our tool, pull up a whole demographic profile, and it'll give you the age cohorts. It'll give you the housing information. It'll give you the population. It'll give you the business landscape. It'll give you the race breakouts. Okay, age, race, you name it. You can get a profile. You're thinking of going somewhere, like a lot of retirees or people thinking of retiring, they want to learn these tools because that's how they explore where they can go. That's also affordable because we collect through the American Community Survey, we collect income, we collect rent, we collect mortgage information, so you can look at, different places and can I afford it. One thing I do say, property values from the ACS, take it with a grain of salt because it is a survey. We ask you a question, you respond, we send it. We don't challenge you, we don't correct you. So it's a perceived value that you're giving us, which is going to differ from market value, okay? So it'll give you an indication, kind of a flavor, but the real pricing comes from your realtor. But for renting, rental information, you're thinking of moving or renting as opposed to buying, you can get an idea by doing this research with our data, okay? So make us work for you. Okay, we have a lot of stuff up there that you guys can use. And then also residents use it to, support community initiatives, legislation. Business use the data to decide if I need to, if I can build a factory here or an outlet over there. Local governments are constantly using our data for public service and safety, I should say, and, emergency planning. Real estate developers use our data all the time. That's how they decide where they're going to put their high rises or townhomes or single-family homes, okay? And, I just talked about that one, yeah, the seniors using the data on that. This will be included, I'm not gonna go through every line, but that's a calendar, a schedule of events. We're up there in the last check mark. All of this is when it's going to happen in terms of operations, so you can look at it. We need people, refer them to our website, because everything is automated. We're not handing out applications or anything like that, yes.
Those bullets and that information you're using, in the past slides, is that all this information on a website?
I'm going to share my PowerPoint with you guys, so,
The league's, website.
Do you have to have a login to access that? Do you have to have a login to access that?
No, how long will it take to get up?
and the majority of this stuff, is online, okay? You just have to go, when you go to census.gov, search engine, go to 2020 census, and it's all in there, under partners and so on and so forth, okay? So, okay, so refer people who are interested in working part-time. They'll try and get you to commit to 20 hours or more, okay? Because this is basically how efficiently we projected the work would be handled. And these are just a sample of some of the tools that we have available for you to access our tools. Simple, easy tool to use, quick facts and my congressional district. You want to know what your congressional district looks like in terms of education, income, business landscape, so on and so forth. You can go there and use that tool. This one over here with the continental US, that's our on the map for emergency planning. This is where if you hear on the news, oh, there's a tornado, I have a house in Florida, and there's a big hurricane coming in. You can pop that up in there and look at the impact should it make landfall. And it has the cone of uncertainty, if you will, because that tool is a partnership between FEMA, NOAA, and the census. So FEMA gives you gives you disaster areas, NOAA's giving you real-time weather information, and census is giving you the data. So you can see if it hits landfall, how many people are gonna be affected, how many businesses, blah, 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 so on and so forth. And then we have our Census Business Builder, which is from the Economic Census Department or branch. It's got economic data, geography, over economic data, over ACS data, over consumer expenditure data. You can explore the possibility of growing a business or starting a business if you want. You can explore that. And then our new data site, data.census.gov. This is where all the data is going to be released, okay, going forward. American Fact Finder is retired in June. So if you need assistance, I left my card back there if you would like. Also, we partner with the Northern Illinois University and the Chicago Metropolitan Agency of Planning. They also are a big, disseminator of our data. And so if I don't know the answer, they can point me to, and I can always refer to headquarters as well. So I know I took a little bit over, sorry.
I'm only worried about the weather for everybody. So Palos Heights, it says 6 o'clock before you get
Okay, so we're good.
1 o'clock for Lamont.
So what are those numbers up then? The 630 is you.
630 is me, and then Ask Data is if you forget or lose you just have a question, you can call that number or send an email to Ask Data, and one of our data dissemination assistants will pick up for you. If they can't handle it, they will refer you to me.
I'm sorry, I just want to ask one more question. Since I'm assuming, I feel that security is the biggest issue why people are not going to respond. What kind of a campaign is the Census Bureau doing to convince people that it is safe?
We talk to them about it and show them our confidentiality documentation. It's protected by law. It's
I'm
one.
just saying, are
Oh, yes, we are, wherever we go.
I just read 2 articles this morning about trolling. You know, it's alarming, it's very alarming.
And we do, we are,
Like something on Twitter and it's a troll, I mean, what campaign?
our PIO, our Public Information Office, has, a lot of information on site, that we also have what is called a, rumors page. So if you hear of something that is misinformation, you can post it on there.
That's people who are online, I mean.
Yeah,
is there
we
something
will
that's
investigate it on our side and address it, and then we have also the regional offices will work with the media, local media, to, you know, combat it, if you will, to respond to the incident, if you will.
Radio has some public.
NPR is a big proponent on
Come
that.
to the library too.
Yeah.
I think we've all learned something. I know about the census. as a
Since,
librarian.
yeah.
And thank you for coming out, for many of you on this iffy weather day.
Yeah.
And I know being a government employee, you probably can't take, big gifts. But,
$500
we believe in recycling, and so we just have this, it's something.
You should see the trunk of my car.
Oh.
You would be so jealous. Wherever I go, and that's why I throw them all in there. My niece came in and she goes, "Oh my God, you have so many." I'm like, every time I go to the grocery store,
Yeah.
I reach a few and I go in and I try and pass them out, and they just always keep coming back.
Okay, thank you. If you have someplace that you could post our flyers for the next program, I have a few, so take one with you. And the candidates forms are Lyons Township South